This is my fifth acid trip and my most profound. July 6th, at around 6:20 p.m., I dropped 450 micrograms of lysergic acid diethylamide. The week prior, I had spent time cleansing my mind of anxiety and preparing for this trip by handling things in my life that needed to be handled, such as clearing tensions between my ex and myself, telling a few people a few things I had been meaning to, and finishing up my online summer school class. With most of my baggage off my chest and 4 days off from work, I was ready to buy 3 tabs of some good Lucy, which is the most I've done to date. My dealer, Eric, met me in my alley, which is pretty stereotypical, and we made the exchange. I walked inside, put the acid in my drug box, and talked to my family and had dinner for a few hours before receding into my room for the next 10 hours. At 6:20 p.m., I cleared my head and dropped. I launched Fortnite on my PC and was playing with my friend Jay. We played for maybe an hour and a half. An hour in, I began to feel the oh-so-familiar feeling of my teeth and skin, and tongue began to crawl with little electric pinpricks. Around this same time, the game began to look more and more realistic and vibrant until it began to look like my character was running in front of my face, off my screen. I was already beginning to be surrounded by the flow of everything in my visual field. I started to have trouble communicating with Jay, and playing the game started becoming impossible. I remember specifically glancing down at my hand while I was using the keyboard, and I saw my bones move as if my skin was nearly transparent. Everything around me became vibrant and began to shimmer. I knew that I was in for a big one. By now I managed to mutter, "I'm gonna have to lay down," to Jay before logging off and covering myself with blankets on my bed. At around 8 p.m. I put on Grateful Dead's album Terrapin Station. Since it's the middle of summer, the sun hadn't completely set yet, and the low star cast deep yellow and orange streaks through my blinds and onto my walls. As I laid there, completely invested in the music, and still coming up fast, my walls and carpet and blinds began dancing with the music. There would be waves on the ceiling in rhythm with the song surrounding my vision. If I were to look closer at anything, I could see every individual particle making up the object. For instance, I could see every cell in my hand and every thread in my blankets. I listened to the whole album, and then after it finished, put on Pink Floyd's The Dark Side of the Moon. I remember halfway through the album, my body began to vibrate with the sounds. There's no way of articulating this feeling, but the sounds were quite literally a part of my touch. I could feel each individual sound pulse through my body, and to accompany it, some kind of visual would pop up in front of me. Now up until this point in my psychedelic journey, this was as far as I'd ever managed to dose. As far as I ever got. I managed to always dose myself low enough to make my physical being and perception feel completely bizarre and alien, but I never managed to go deeper. I think this is as far as most people go in. But I knew there was something more to be known. I wanted to go into the places that I heard Terence McKenna and Ellen Watts talking about. I never saw the light, the profound, the other, the unspeakable. On one trip prior, I remember feeling the very beginnings of my ego dissolving, but nothing more. But this trip was different. This overwhelming sense of understanding began to build from the moment I started tripping. So after doing trivial things like watching the walls become great cityscapes or watch the ceiling fan melt into the floor, which I've done plenty of on trips prior, I decided that this was still coming on, stronger by the minute, and I felt my ego begin to dissolve. By now it's around 1:30 a.m. and completely dark outside. I turned off all the lights in my room and put on my headphones and began listening to binaural beats for meditation. By now leading up to now, I had subconsciously felt that there was some sort of struggle in my mind. My internal voice became frantic, asking questions that I've never asked before, and giving answers that made sense in a way I can't explain. I felt every part of my life be taken away from me one by one. My ego, and everything that I had built for 17 years up until this point began disappearing, and replaced my ego was pure understanding and being. I lost memory of my mother, of myself, of any of my friends, of anything I ever cared about. I became nothing, while simultaneously I was everything. I remember feeling my body dissolve into my blanket, then into my bed, then into everyone and everything I've ever known. I'd become the universe. I felt all things and began to piece by piece decide that this was it, that this is the answer, that this is all I am meant to do is experience simply and in complete balance. I understood that the ultimate state of being is to understand that there's nothing to understand. And up until this point, I had tried with everything I had to make sense of things on a daily basis and refused to believe that the answer is so simple. The whole time I was presented with amazing visuals of vast, impossible landscapes, as if I was an eye with no body. far off places with tall mountains and planets in multiple places at once, and streaks of color I've never seen before. Snakes slithering into each other and plants growing infinitely, spinning, constantly changing flowers, endless geometry and impossible shapes that don't exist in our reality. Then I felt a grand presence enter wherever I was, and was suddenly cast into an endless corridor of beautifully colored faces. Google Alex Gray's art to get an idea of what I'm talking about. This space roared with noise and archetypal symbolism. I saw every religion's symbolism from every culture. I saw the Father, and I saw the Mother. I saw yin and yang in the form of two clouds of smoke, one white and one black, colliding with each other but never becoming gray. I came face to face with fear and bad intentions personified. I saw all things that drive everything in the universe. I saw the rule book of life. I knew that this presence was the universal consciousness, or God, or whatever you want to call it. It was there with me. It showed me the beauty of raw experience in faces. Endless, beautiful, perfectly symmetrical hallways of faces. I got the sense that these faces were meant to show me that the human form is purposeful. The face is designed by something we don't understand and thrust into our physical reality through the evolution of life on Earth. I got the feeling that I am something immensely special. The message that this entity was giving me was to shut up, stop worrying, and listen. It showed me that the universe created life out of nothing. It showed me that our only purpose is to understand. We look for peace in material and relationships, but it never occurs to us how amazing it is to feel nothing. Then the trip became slightly sinister and joking with me. It began to play this sad song while showing me a man in the fetal position, searching for relief in our physical world that he only finds after death. I was shown this for what seemed like eternity. I remember the words bouncing around. It's all a joke. This is all a big play. Can't you see, monkey, that you have no clue what we are doing? At the time I was not at all scared, instead in awe and curious as to what was meant by all of this. By now in the trip I have little recollection of my physical body, but I remember experiencing this beautiful, blissful connection to everything, and in the distance of my mind hearing myself cry. I felt my body convulse and cry, as I was charged with this pure truth and understanding. I had no more connection to anything in my everyday life. Instead I am just enveloped by love and by bliss, and simultaneously by hate and by chaos. Everything was there, and so nothing was. I realize now that this isn't all a big joke. Life's more of a big metaphor, a game to become good at. You get to choose what you make your purpose in this life, and spend every day working at it. Or you can minimize from every day and choose to be fed what to do by society. Either way, you'll return to nothing, so it doesn't matter in the end, but it really matters now. And now is all we will ever experience in this life. After this enlightening and completely amazing experience, I began piecing my life back together one thing at a time. I looked at old pictures and tried to text a few friends to ground myself again. By 2:45 a.m., I took 2 sleeping pills and I don't remember much after 3:30 a.m. My next memory is waking up at 9:30, trying to piece together what the fuck happened last night. I got up, ate some Fig Newtons, drank a glass of water and was sober but mind blown for the rest of the day. It was beautiful and terrifying and completely invaluable to me. Having integrated this experience for a month and some change, my life has taken on a new meaning. I am immensely more relaxed and confident in everything I do. The universe has a larger purpose for me, so I need to just do my part in the play, or the big experiment of life on Earth as best I can. I've played much more music since, and can feel other musicians' music in a way I never have before. It all feels so personal now. I think this trip represents one more huge step towards me becoming the best version of myself. I haven't tripped since and probably won't for a while, as this was the single most intense and life-changing trip of my life. And at the moment I don't feel the need to heal myself any further.